You're on.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our City Council meeting. Today is Monday, June 1st, 2020. It's approximately 1 p.m. Before we have our Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to ask if you please rise for a brief moment of silence for Mr. George Floyd, our police and Las Cruces Police and Las Cruces Fire Department, as well as our men and women of the United States military. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So now we're going to have Jennifer Martinez from our communications office going to introduce our pet of the week.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. For the record, I'm Jennifer Martinez with the city's communications office. And today, let me share my screen first. There we go. I am going to introduce you to Santa's Little Helper. This guy is just under 4 years old, and he is the happiest boy in town. His joyous personality is infectious, and you'll have a smile glued to your face every time you are around this handsome fella. Santa's Little Helper is attentive, loving, and affectionate, unlike any other, and he'll make a perfect companion for any family. You can meet Santa's Little Helper by making an appointment with the Animal Service Center. Their hours of operation are noon to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and on Saturday and Sunday, noon to 5 p.m. You will need to call 382-0018 to make that appointment. As of right now, offsite adoption events are canceled until further notice. Again, there are limitations at the Animal Service Center. Adoptions are $25. You will need to go to ascmb.org/adoptions. And that is because of those limitations. Animal control will bring only emergency cases to the shelter, only sick or injured animal, owner-surrendered animals being accepted, and they're only taking emergency health appointments from adopted or fostered animals. So now let's talk about fostering. The Animal Service Center is looking for volunteers and foster families. Those foster families provide a safe environment for pets while they await their forever family. Foster families save lives, encourage playful, healthy, and friendly atmospheres. And the Animal Service Center provides everything you need to care for this foster pet. You just have to supply your love and attention. You can get foster applications at ascmb.org. The communications office also likes to bring you these tips about COVID-19. You can find information about Las Cruces and Doña Ana County on the dashboard. You can find that at covid19lascruces.com. There's an interactive map from the Department of Health, case data by the county and zip code, the number of deaths, the total tests, the tests performed, total hospitalizations, breakdowns by age, businesses, employees. There's also data from Johns Hopkins University and tips to stay healthy. So if you just go to covid19lascruces.com, you can find all that information right there. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so we don't have any presentations of certificates or proclamations, but I do have a couple things I'd like to do. First, I want to read a official statement regarding the senseless killing of Mr. George Floyd. I put this out over the weekend. Like everyone else, I was horrified by the video of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. This event, like the disproportionate effect of the coronavirus on African American, Hispano, and Native peoples, drives home the truth that life for many of us is experienced much differently than it is for others. For all of our many strengths, a weakness of our country has been a racism deeply embedded in our history, a poison that drags our national consciousness and sense of ourselves as a good and worthy people. None of us is free from powerful misconceptions about others that compromise our humanity. None of us is unburdened by a culture of blindness to our neighbors' suffering and a long-standing willingness to let harm come their way. We are better than that, not just here in Las Cruces, but across the land. I pray that God will grant us the strength to learn from this tragedy, the humility to acknowledge inequities among us, and the opportunity to forge a better path forward that all of us can share. So, as I said, I put that forward. And second, I don't know if you've noticed a friendly face here, Udell V. Hill. Good to have you here, Udell. I'm glad to see that you changed your mind and you decided to come back and work for us. And,
Thanks, Mayor. Good to see you.
Gosh, I remember what, 90 days ago when you put out that you're going to be retiring. And it's funny, I was even thinking, I thought, was it March, was it May, end of May that you were going to be leaving? And, you know, that came, and it wouldn't be right to not have a chance to tell you how much we appreciate you, all that you've done for the city. I mean, you literally went, for those of you who, which is practically almost all of you, other than, and Gil to a certain degree, but Udell and I came on board about the same time in 2001. And CLC TV really didn't even exist practically. And, you know, if any of you weren't aware that not only did Udell work in that media, that type of media with various stations throughout the borderland, but he also appeared in several movies as well. And so he brought that experience and really changed CLC TV into the dynamic, the best government-run station. In fact, it doesn't even look like a government-run station. When I used to travel to different cities and you'd put on the government station, I mean, you could tell that was a government station. You really can't tell that with us and with ours. And that's a testament to Udell and his great team and the many awards that they've won. I don't know what it's called, Udell, but I know it's equivalent to like the Oscars. And you seem to just clean up every year. And so I just wanted to take
Emmys.
Yes.
You guys get the Emmys?
Yes.
Oh, I know that. Okay. Well, sorry about that, Councilor. And I just wanted to just publicly thank you for all the work that you've done and a well-deserved retirement, and kind of see if any of the council members wish to say anything as well, and also give you a chance to say something. But let me just go with the council members first and just down the road, and then let you say something. So Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, you have something you'd like to say? Just need you to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. Udell, I'm going to miss you. Thank you for everything that you've done for the city. Been impressed with you and your staff and what you've been able to accomplish, and especially now via the COVID-19. There have been times during the weekend where we've spoken and I've asked for certain things between you and Mr. Maestas, and you have delivered not just any old way. It has been above and beyond. So thank you. God bless you. I certainly will miss you. So good luck in your new chapter.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. That means a lot to me.
Councilor Flores, you here? Doesn't look like she's here yet. Councilor Sword.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I always leaned on Mr. Vihel many times in my years here on the council. And I'm just so impressed by the productions that he has done with his staff and the good work he's done for the city and the city government. It's just awesome. I can't thank him enough. We're going to miss him. Are you really going, Udell? Are you really leaving? Or is this,
Yes.
You might stay a while. No, okay. Well, anyway, as I said in the email, I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Councilor Bencomo.
Hi, Udell.
Hello.
Obviously, I've known you the shortest, Councilor Betastuvi and I, but you've always been incredibly kind and willing to answer any questions. So I just really appreciated getting to know you and everything you've done. And I think they're going to be hard shoes to fill. So thank you for your dedication to the city and wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. And Udell, you're going to be missed by, I'm sure, your staff especially, but really everybody at the city that benefited from the great communication efforts that came out of your department since your tenure. I think I actually worked with you a few times as a reporter when I was at the Las Cruces Bulletin, and maybe that's just right around the same time the mayor came on and you came on, and so started getting your press releases then. And I remember as a kind of fresh communication student coming out of college thinking, man, I'd love to have a job like Udell someday, because he does a great job at it. And, it's a special thing to be the PIO for a city. because you have so many different communications to juggle from each department. And, so I think you've done a terrific job. I agree that our production and our communication has been top notch. I know our local media really appreciates getting all your timely updates, how fast you can turn around press releases, and how well your staff runs things down there. So I'm particularly going to miss you, because I know you've put a lot of hard work and passion into this job, and I wish you the best in your next endeavor. But I think that broadcast studio that we have down in the communications department should have like the Udell V Hill broadcast studio plaque right in front of it, or something similar to your time here. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your service to our community, and wish you the best.
Thank you for your words, Councilor. They mean a lot.
Sounds good, Councilor. You would have been about 10 when Udell and I started, so it probably was a little bit later.
Oh, hey, I appreciate that.
Councilor Abeyta-Stube.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Udell, for the warm welcome that you gave myself and Councilor Bencomo. I know it hasn't been very long, but I've appreciated all your welcoming for us. And good luck on your next adventure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
David Maestas, on behalf of the City of Las Cruces. David, you have anything you'd like to say?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to. First thing I'd like to point out, we were able to give our thank yous to Udell on Friday of last week with the executive team. And one of the greatest things I heard, one of the directors let Udell know that they reread the governor's public health orders, and the fine print at the bottom of it said that Udell was not allowed to retire, so he had to stay with the City of Las Cruces a little bit longer, at least through the duration of the health emergency. I thought that was pretty good. I don't have a problem enacting that and keeping that in place. That way we can keep it for a while. But Udell didn't like that. He thought, no, I'm going to go anyways. But yes, on behalf of the City of Las Cruces, Udell, I'd like to mirror what all of the councilors said. In particular, the mayor hitting on when you started here, we did not have CLC TV in the manner that we have now. We did not have the notifications and the press releases and the website information that we do now. I know the website's been a collective effort through Jamie's department as well, but your collaboration with them have really improved the way we get information out. And it's a huge benefit to our customers. Our community is very lucky and very fortunate that we had you during this duration, this time frame, to put those in place. But more importantly, as Mayor Pro Tem noted, with the public health emergency, based on what you have done with your collaboration, your team, we were able to continue to get information out, to work together, and make sure that our community is informed with what actions are taking place. Especially from the health and safety welfare standpoint, the COVID button that you have put in place is phenomenal for people to be able to click that and get information, not just about the city, but other agencies, the Department of Health, the CDC, and so on. Aside from that, just a great person, Udell. I've enjoyed working with you as a person, working with you as a coworker, learning from you. And each of the directors that spoke to Udell essentially said the exact same thing. It wasn't just about the great work that you do. It's about the person that you are. Your humor, your jokes, your welcoming endeavors to people, letting us know we all felt like family with you was greatly appreciated. You will be extremely missed, but we're happy for you. It's well-deserved. Hope you have the best in whatever comes forth, whatever your endeavors are. We wish you the best, praying for you. And keep in touch. As I mentioned, my number will be the same. You know where I'm at. You can always come by and say hi. Thank you so much, Udell.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David. You know what? And before you speak, Udell, that's what threw me off, is because you were working so hard all the way up to the end of the week. So I figured, well, maybe it's next month. Because you didn't take any time off. I mean, you got the dashboard, you got all these things done, and that's what threw me off. And then when I read something that you had basically retired, I'm like, that's what really honestly threw me, because a lot of times, of course not here in the city, but you see this in other places where they're short timing, and 2-3 weeks before they retire, you don't even see them. They're in and out. And so, but you were working all the way to 5:30 or whatever and got everything done. anyways, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the invitation to join you and the City Council this afternoon. It really means a lot to me, and I just want you all to know that the pleasure is all mine. The last 19 years, 5 months has just been a very joyous time for me with the City of Las Cruces. I thank you for your leadership, Mayor and City Councilors. You're providing good leadership for this community. You've always resourced our office. You've given us moral support. And you're the reason that our office has been so successful is because you've been behind us the whole time. This is just a truly magnificent place to work. I will always speak very highly of the City of Las Cruces. I will constantly encourage people to apply for employment here because it is such a great place to work. And you all make it great. So really quick, I do want to thank the team, Adrian Guzman, Dominic Aragon, Jennifer Martinez, Leti Garcia, Steve Ramirez, Lizette Lopez. These are the people who are the creative force behind the communications office. And I'm just a guy who signs their timesheets, but they're really the creative force. So I want to thank them as well. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and God bless you all. And you have very important work ahead of you. And you have a lot of impact in our community. And I pray that you continue to make the right decisions and continue to lead our community forward. And with that, I'll just say adios and thank you once again.
Before you leave, looks like Councilor Flores joined us. Maybe she may want to have some closing comments. Councilor Flores, we brought Udell back just so we could, tell him that how much we appreciate him through his years. He's retiring after 19 plus years. Is there something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I noticed he's very sorry to be leaving after it went by really fast, 19 years and 5 months.
Right.
Hours. But, well, I've already said this to him in person. I'm going to miss you terribly. I think the short time that we worked here together, it was, for me, it's been 2 years and 7 months. It's been hell. It's been hell. No. But anyway, it was always wonderful to see your smile and to get those PIOs out. And it's just been wonderful. And I'm going to miss you terribly. I wish you the best. I think that you and the judge will be able to maybe take some time off and enjoy life a little bit or a lot. So enjoy your travels, enjoy your retirement. Thank you very much, Mr. Vigil.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Flores.
And for members of the public who she's talking about the judge, your wife is a judge. So that's, just thought I'd throw that out.
Oh, yeah. Judge Grace Duran.
Good.
Thank you.
That judge.
Okay, well, take care, Udell. Thank you for everything. And we appreciate it. And hopefully you stay in touch.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye all.
Bye-bye. Okay, so now we're going to go to the conflict of interest statement. This is where I'll ask if any member of the city council, city manager, or any member of city staff has any known conflict of interest on any item on the agenda.
None.
None.
Okay, seeing none. So I've got a few that I want to just touch base on, some that might be better suited for our special council meeting shortly following this. But just one in particular, and I just want to say this, and then I'll go over, recap a few of the others. This is one from Jason Savage, and it was actually today. It says, on your proclamation of emergency 2020-03, there's a typo or / word omission on one of the most important lines. This will lead to uncertainty and confusion from business owners as they try to adhere to the city's asinine limitations set ahead of the state's orders. Good luck. So Jason, you're right, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I just wanted, but that came in this morning, and that was my fault. Totally my fault. I just, when I was typing away around 11 o'clock Thursday evening, I omitted a word which I thought I put in there, and that word is outside, and I didn't put it out there. Okay, so I've got. Let's see here. We've received I just guessed, about 2,200 signatures And this is regarding the, well, I'll just read it. I won't read all the signatures, but about 2,200. Greetings. COVID-19 has changed our world, has taken things from us, and will never get back. It has instilled fear in our hearts, panic and instability in our economy, and uncertainty in our worlds. It has replaced our regular everyday lives with what the news outlets and the rest of the like to call the new normal. As a community, we have done everything that has been asked, required of us. We've worn masks. We've remained isolated in our homes for over 10 weeks. We've sacrificed relationships, experiences, mental health, and financial well-being in a huge effort to protect ourselves and those we love from this invisible enemy, as COVID is being called. All of these things we have done in unity, buying into the idea that we have the power to flatten the curve, to slow the spread, so that our healthcare systems can ramp up and be prepared to handle this crisis. All of our efforts have mattered. Our efforts have made a difference. Now, 10 weeks later, we've been told by our governor, who's being advised by multiple health experts and agencies, that our efforts have resulted in the loosening of a stranglehold that we've been under. Our gym owners and restaurateurs have waited the longest, while they have watched big box stores like Walmart, Home Depot, and many others continue to prosper as their own bottom lines have shrunken. They also willingly complied with the state orders that put a stop to their livelihoods. They watched as these large stores were deemed trustworthy to enforce the state requirements, while the message to them has been one of distrust and skepticism. All the while, these patient giving business owners have robbed Peter to pay Paul. They have used their own personal funds to pay their non-working staff. They have used every resource at their disposal, waiting for the word that finally they can do what they do best, serve the people of Las Cruces. They have even continued to serve in philanthropic ways in making sure our citizens are fed and helped. What a sigh of relief that they sighed when they heard last week that June 1st really would be the day. It would be the day that they could open their indoor facilities at 50% of regular capacity. 50% okay, they thought. 50% isn't 100%, but it's a step in the right direction. We'll take it. We'll prove through the retraining and excellence of our staff, and also through careful, conscientious adherence to the COVID safe practices, that we can do this. We can, and we will keep our patrons, employees, and customers safe. Once again, their hopes were dashed after Mayor Miyagishima has been telling us for over 2 months that he is trusting, and we need to trust the governor's instructions and requirements. When she finally gives the go-ahead, he pumps the brakes. Suddenly, after all of this time trusting the governor's words, he knows better than the governor. On Friday, before the Tuesday opening at 50%, he issues a proclamation that backs gyms, salons, and restaurants off to 25%. When the public voiced concern and dissatisfaction with this proclamation, he began to suggest that we just don't understand the math. He said, everyone is just fixating on 25%. Of course we are. Here are a few reasons why. When the governor gave the go-ahead, local restaurants made inventory orders in consideration of the 50% capacity assumption. This means that food was purchased to feed customers that will now rot, as half of it can't be used since we are only allowed 25% capacity. It also means that the dwindling bank accounts of our businesses won't see a return on half the product that they bought in preparation for reopening on June 1st. Our mayor said that our restaurants could have 50% seating capacity outside. Well, that's wonderful for places that have the ability, health department clearance, and insurance liability coverage for outdoor seating. In June, in New Mexico, I don't have to tell you how miserable and also impossible that would be for most restaurants. Number 3, as most of you have either owned or been involved in business well know, overhead costs are not based on your seating capacity. Rent is still due, operating loan payments are still owed, power, insurance, merchant fees, the list goes on and on. We bring this petition to you with over 2,500 signatures. Okay, well, I just guessed at 2,200. Many of these signatures were those of restaurant owners, theater workers, gyms, and salons. These businesses are the lifeblood of our community. You know them by name, you eat at their establishments, you benefit from the value that they add to this community. As your constituents, we are here to remind you of these facts and to point out that we who voted you into office, trusting that you would both hear our voices and do what you were elected to do. We elected you to enact the will of the people. We aren't asking you to go any further than the governor is already letting the rest of the state go. I could go on showing the science and statistics that prove that Las Cruces is in a great position of slowing the spread and flattening the curve, but the governor has already done that for me. Please review the data provided by the state. Trust our governor in this. As you determine how you vote on this matter, please think of over the 2,500 of us who are imploring you to follow the governor's guidelines and not our mayor's. The governor had the opportunity to exclude our county from the 50% capacity loosening, and she did not. That should say more to you than anything the mayor is presenting. His science is not better than our governor's. Please hear us and act accordingly. We have the power in our voting rights to remove council members who do not do the will of the people. We respect the work you do and hope that you will hear us in our request. Please follow the governor's guidelines and limitations. They are enough. Thank you for reading this and for your consideration. We hope and pray that you hear our voices and vote no on approving or extending the mayor's emergency proclamation that limits capacity to 50%. We've done all we can. It's in your hands now. Please use them wisely. And these are those are the signatures. Okay. And then I received about, I got some last minute. I'm just going to read the names that are also against the emergency proclamation. So this one's from Vern Morton. This one's from Dallas Searcy. Marcy Braddock. This one here is from no reply at civicplus.com. Jody Redfern. Robert Fisk. Lance and Jennifer Martin. Merle Schwam. Aaron Hughes. And Kelly Corporate. So those were also basically against the extension of the emergency proclamation. We received about, just real quick, in the last hour, about 6 no or against the mass ordinance. And I'll just read you the names. Aaron Hughes, Jeff Howley, Angela Howley, Rebecca Felix, Ashton Haight, and Jackie Butler. So they're not for the ordinance requiring mass citywide. And I'm not sure about this one. I'm just gonna put down that they're for, and this is Gerald Heinderlich. Okay. So that takes care of public participation. And now we're gonna go to acceptance of the agenda.
Mayor,
Mhm. Who's that? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to pull 6.1 and 6.3, please.
6.1, 6.3. Mayor Pro Tem Andra. Okay, is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented with those 2 items off?
I'll move to accept the agenda with those items pulled.
I'll second.
Okay.
Vasquez.
Motion made by Councilor Sorg, second by Councilor Vasquez to accept the agenda as presented with items 6.1 and 6.3 removed for discussion. Christine?
This is on the motion to accept the agenda with the removal of items 6.1 and 6.3 for discussion. Councilor Abeyta-Stube?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Gandara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and Christine, you know, I need some clarification here. The item 7.1 is not to be an emergency order, but rather an ordinance. And so how do we handle that? To either remove that, or is that is an emergency ordinance that I would not be signing? I apologize if that was my fault for having it put on there, but that's that was supposed to be read as an ordinance.
So we would have to remove it from the agenda.
Okay, so let me go back to Councilor Sorg and Councilor Vasquez. Either include the removal of this for our next council meeting. Is that something that you would support?
Mr. Mayor, could you explain that again?
Okay, so inadvertently, item 7.1 is showing as an emergency ordinance, which would mean that it would be for my signature. That's not that's not the case. I'm not planning on doing an emergency order for the face coverings. That was set up to be a discussion and vote on the 15th of June. And so it needs to go for a first read and then a vote. And so somehow we inadvertently put it under this item here. And so that's what I would like to either have removed, or, I mean, I'm not going to sign it. And so that's why I wanted just to see if we can incorporate as part of the changes to the agenda, to have that move to our next council meeting. And if you agree, and if Councilor Vasquez agrees, or maybe we just need to have another vote on it. I don't know. What do you think, Christine?
We can do another vote to remove it.
Okay.
Hey, Mayor?
Yes.
This is Gabe Vasquez for the record. So is the ordinance currently written as having an expiration time or date for the actual ordinance requirement, or was it written as an emergency ordinance to reflect concurrence with the emergency declaration or the governor's orders?
Jennifer, did you want to jump in on that real quick?
Mayor and Council, thank you. If you would like to discuss the item, you can wait for it to come up on the agenda. You don't have to vote for it. It can be tabled or it can be removed at that time. But if you would like to discuss it, then you can wait for it to come up on the agenda.
Okay, well, let's just do that then. I didn't know if it needed to be included in the agenda setting portion of it. So, okay, well, let's just do that then.
Okay.
All right, sorry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and go to 6.1, which is resolution 20-162. I need a motion and a second. Hold on a second, Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mr.
Can I get a motion and a second for this item?
So moved. Second, Cassandra.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Mayor Pro Tem Gondra. Yes, Councilor Flores?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but the question, this is Councilor Flores. The question is for Attorney Vega Brown. She said that we can discuss item 7.1. Would the discussion, well, either Ms. Rivera or Attorney Vega Brown, would the discussion today then qualify as a quote first read unquote, and then it could be on the agenda for a vote on the 15th, the June 15 meeting?
Mayor and Council, it depends on how you change it. If you determine to change as it's written, if the changes are not substantive, then you can leave it on and it will be a first read. If not, if there are drastic changes to it, then it will have to be republished.
Republished and a first read on June 15.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Sure. Okay, so thank you, Councilor. Mayor Pro Tem Gondra, you asked to have this removed. Did you have some questions, or did you want a full presentation?
Full presentation, please.
Okay, so it looks like we have Alex Liu and Ms. Josie Medina.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Let me share my screen. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Chen Yu Alex Liu with Purchasing Section. Today, I'm going to present you the procurement for financial audit services for the state of Las Cruces. This is a request for proposal 19-20-113. This RFP was issued March 6, 2020, and due back to the city March 19, 2020. This RFP was directly emailed to all the approved audit companies in New Mexico. And a full formal proposal was received. The proposal was detailedly reviewed and evaluated by the Selection Advisory Committee on April 16, 2020. And the SAC committee recommend PATTILLO, Browns and Hills LLP of Albuquerque, New Mexico to be awarded for contract. The initial term is for 1 year with 2 one-year renewable options subject to budget appropriation. Contract award amount is not to exceed $229,504 annually with tax. With that, I'll pass on to Josie Medina to talk more about the services. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Josie Medina with the city's finance department. PATTILLO, Brown and Hill would be performing the annual audit for the city, South Central Solid Waste, Metro, MIRVDA, and Animal Services. PB&H will provide a draft of findings on November 1st and shall report any audit findings to the finance director and the city manager. Findings and issues shall be reported immediately by PB&H to the finance director and city manager. The contract award is for 1 year with the option of 2 one-year renewals subject to annual budget appropriations approved by City Council and approval from the Office of the New Mexico State Auditor. And your options, your console options are shown below. And
Okay, thank you.
Questions.
Thank you, Josie. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Liu and Josie. I appreciate it. I have a few questions. Is this particular entity have experience with municipalities our size or municipalities in New Mexico?
This is Josie. Yes, they do have knowledge and experience with municipalities. They have worked with the city of Albuquerque, and they have worked in other government agencies in Las Cruces. And one of the they had a lot of experience in New Mexico, which is one of the reasons on my own I voted for them, because they did have that experience in New Mexico.
Okay, thank you, Josie. And a second question, as part of the SAC, do you have people from the other, like the Animal Center and the South Central Solid Waste Authority that sits on that SAC committee? Or how do you get feedback from those entities that will be participating or being on the receiving end of this particular audit? How are you guys working that and collaborating with the other entities?
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Alex Liu. Based on the City of Las Cruces Procurement Code, SAC is formed by 3 directors and 5 subject matter experts. And the 3 directors, the finance director, legal, the city attorney, and the public work directors, and 5 subject matter specialists is from utilities, finance, audit, different departments. So for this procurement, there's no outside JPA's representative in the Selection Advisory Committee.
So is it against our Las Cruces Procurement Code to have that represented? I just feel there's a disconnect, and if we can sort of close that gap in terms of getting someone to sit on the SAC and be able to give feedback would be helpful in my mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. I think the questions and feedback was provided by the JPAs. That's the rationale of going out for IFP for this solicitation. And all the feedback and the things we want is included inside the solicitation documents. What we happened before, we want to improve our process and get more involved, the auditors and the the customers more involved, more publication, more transparency. That's the purpose of this solicitation.
Oh, thank you, Alex. I appreciate. I think that's important. And in terms of the solicitation document, are the city clear about what the expectations are in terms of the process set forth when they do convene the audit?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, in this specific solicitation, we put in more requirements for the auditors to work closely with the city and the JPAs, and it was also included in the contract inside the deliverables that how many meetings they have to present and help us to be more transparent and get the community to understand the process.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that and appreciate all your efforts in being more explicit in terms of what our expectations are of the firm. I think that's very important, and so that we don't land in the same position that we did last time with a particular audit and having some of those findings because we didn't have people participating in these meetings. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor. That's all of my questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there any more? Let's see here. Let's get my participant here. More questions? Councilor Flores. Did you have a question, Councilor?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to take my hand down.
Oh, okay. Okay, if there's no more questions, Christine?
This is on a motion to approve Resolution 20-162. Councilor Beta-Stuvey?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Gandara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, next item, 6.3, Resolution 20-164.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Councilor Sorg. And Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a question or do you want a presentation on this?
A presentation, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Looks like Alex Liu is back up again and Trish Weaver.
Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Alrighty. Mayor, councilors, Chair Alex Liu again, presenting the procurement for small government.
I'm sorry, Mayor?
Yes.
This is the wrong resolution.
Okay, 20-164, small government term enterprise?
She wanted 6.3.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
resolution 20-164. That's not what you were, it looks like that's what he was presenting.
The sole source, the 85,000 with that mapping, I believe.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that was it. The items got switched up, so it was 6.2.
Oh. Okay,
Sorry.
you were just checking to see.
It's
if we were
okay.
paying-
I was just making sure that we were on the same page.
You were just checking to see if I was paying attention.
Thank you.
So, are we correct? Correct?
We're good. Yes.
All right. This is the procurement for small governmental.
Alex, can you put we lost your information.
Oh, okay. Let me try that again.
There you go.
All right. This is the procurement for a small governmental term license agreement. This is the procurement number 19-20-089. Based on the nature of this procurement, it was determined as sole source procurement based on the city procurement code. The city standardized in ArcGIS software for the Geographic Information System GIS operation. The platform is only available from ESRI, Environmental System Research Institute, Inc. ESRI sells its platform directly. There's no other source available currently in the market. Completely replace the current standardization platform will lead to duplication of cost, additional training time for the staff, and also unacceptable delay for the operation. The total award goes to the vendor is not to exceed $85,000 annually. The contract is for 1 year with 2 one-year renewable options. With that, I will pass on to the IT department to talk more about its services.
I'm sorry, Alex, would you say you're gonna pass this on to?
Yes, it's, I think her name.
Trish?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. This GIS program, this software is for analyzing and mapping geographic data for city and surrounding areas. It also stores, and there'll be GIS staff can manage the data, which is the essential function. And ArcGIS incorporates power mapping and visualization, analytics, and data management tools.
And here are your council options, and we will stand for questions.
Thanks, Alex. And who was just speaking was Trish Weaver. So, okay, so questions? Mayor Pro Tem, did you have anything specific you wanted to ask?
I do, Mayor. Thank you, Trish and Alex. Is this replacing the current GIS system that we have, or is it in addition to it?
No, it's the same one.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was thinking it was different, and I didn't, I think, read in there that it was the same, and it's just but you're renewing the same contract. It's giving you everything that you need. Nothing new?
Yes, it's the same.
Okay, got it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none. Christine?
This is on the motion to approve Resolution 20-164. Councilor Abeyta-Stube?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Gandara?
Sorry, yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, so next we'll go to item 7.1. That's Council Bill number 20-037, ordinance number 2929. So Jennifer, you need a motion? We need to do a motion in a second, or Christine, for this just to discuss it even?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, then I need a motion second, please.
Move to approve.
Second, Bencomo.
Motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Councilor Bencomo. And as I was mentioning, this was meant to be a first read for today. Somehow, somehow we got put into emergency order, which is not the case. And so, Jennifer, you want to share with us how we can best rectify this?
Mayor and Council, if you want to discuss the language in the ordinance, you can do that, and then you can talk about any changes that you would like to make, or any amendments that you'd like to make. I think Barbara De Leon has a PowerPoint presentation about it, so if you want to go through the PowerPoint presentation and then
sure,
do that.
It's probably not a bad idea. Barbara, you prepared to do that?
Yeah,
Oh,
good
David.
afternoon, Mayor and
Looks like,
Council.
looks like David has a quick question. I'm sorry for interrupting. Yes,
Sure.
David?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure, because you've tried to mention about the difference in the wording there, and I take full responsibility for that. We should not have had the term emergency ordinance in there, and that's the reason for the discussion now and why we're trying to decide how we move forward with it. So I apologize to council on behalf of that mistake and for any inconvenience that it's caused in trying to determine how we move forward on that. So thank you, Mayor, and again, my apology for that.
Well, thanks, David. I was trying to take the fall for it. I was trying to,
we should let it lie where
I
it's at.
was literally throwing myself under the bus.
No,
It was hard. I have to tell you, it was hard though.
I appreciate that, Mayor, but we'll let it lie where it's at, and I should not have had the word emergency on that. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, Barbara. Go ahead.
Not a problem. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Barbara DeLeon, Interim Assistant City Manager. And I'm just going to share my screen with you. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present this ordinance for your consideration. As we all know, the CDC has issued guidance for COVID-19 to prevent the spread. Social distancing is best, but they also issued guidance to wear cloth face covers. And with that, there have been several proclamations, directives, and ordinances aimed at this in our community. So I'd like to present those to you along with the proposed ordinance, which is on the agenda today. So first, chronologically, we have the Mayor's Proclamation, which was issued on May 15th, 2020, to require masks of the public in city buildings and facilities, of the public while on or waiting for public transportation, of drivers of public transportation in operation. There are some exceptions to this requirement, and that is when someone is alone in a personal office, a child younger than 3 years of age, or if there are health issues that preclude someone from wearing a mask in these situations. Next, we have the governor's public health order, which as early as May 16th, it's been amended since, but with the same stipulations, requires masks of individuals in public settings and of employees in the workplace. There are some exceptions for eating, drinking, exercising, and health issues. And for businesses and churches, the recommendation is to offer face coverings or gloves to the public customers, but it's not a requirement that they're worn in these venues. We also have the Doña Ana County Ordinance, which was signed on May 26. In this ordinance, masks are required of persons in public places outside of a home or a personal vehicle. It specifically includes employees, customers, and clients of businesses. There are some exceptions here as well. Someone's alone in a personal office or vehicle, for a child less than or equal to 2 years of age, or with judgment of the parent less than or equal to 8 years, if there's some inability to consistently wear the mask. Another exception during individual exercise, if there are some health issues or safety risks, and specifically for patients in medical or dental exam rooms. Today's proposed ordinance requires masks of the public and employees in retail and commercial businesses, in city buildings, properties, and facilities, the public and drivers of any form of public transportation. The exceptions are eating, drinking, exercising, being alone in a personal office or vehicle, for a child younger than 3 years of age, or if there are any health issues that preclude the wearing of the masks in these circumstances. For your convenience, I have drafted some comparisons between what's already existing out in the community and what we're considering today, so that you can see some of the differences And I will point out that the Doña Ana County ordinance, I believe, and certainly Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, applies to the county outside of our municipality, so to areas outside of the city of Las Cruces, but within the county. But here you can see the different directives and who is required to wear masks in which situations. And I also have a table that shows the exceptions for the different proclamations, orders, and ordinances in place in our community, and how they would potentially be enforced. So with that, I will stand for any questions that you may have.
Okay, so we have Councilor Sorg, and then Councilor Flores, and then Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. De Leon. The question I have concerns the county ordinance. I'm not clear as to where it is applied and where it isn't. Where is it jurisdiction for it?
I'm going to defer to our city attorney, Jennifer Vega Brown. Thank you.
Mayor and council, this, you're talking about the proposed city ordinance, correct?
No, the county ordinance that was passed.
In the incorporated and the unincorporated areas of the county, it wouldn't be within the city limits, within the incorporated municipality.
Okay. Did they write it that way, or is that the way it has to go by law, state statute?
That's the way that county ordinances work.
That's where it's worded.
That's how they work. That's how they function.
It is.
They cannot be enforced within the city limits.
Interesting. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, if they had that authority, Councilor Sorg, they wouldn't need us. Councilor Flores, and then Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. De Leon, for your presentation. So I too had the same question that Councilor Sorg had. In looking at the graphs that you put up, and that was very helpful to see the difference between the state, the county, and the city. But are there any real substantive differences insofar as I could see how the county needed to have a resolution or ordinance, but what about the city is pretty much consistent with the state. I'm looking at slide 7.
I believe I just shared that on the screen.
Yeah. So the difference is that so now I'm looking at it, now I'm wondering. So the CLC proclamation has public facilities, public transportation, drivers, individuals in public settings, and employees in the workplace. And so, okay.
Is your question did you say what this is Barbara De Leon, sorry, the substantive differences between which ones are you in particular looking at?
Yes, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Thank you. The comparison between the CLC and the PHO, the Public Health Office, I mean, what exactly are we doing that's different?
So the comparison between the first column, which is the proclamation that was enacted on the 15th of May, covered city facilities and property and public transportation. The state public health order advises individuals to wear masks in public settings that may be outside of the specific city facilities and public transportation that we specified in the proclamation. And then they require that employees in workplaces wear masks. And we did this, the CLC proclamation did not have that requirement. And the state requirement for mask wearing in of employees in workplace covers retail, restaurant, offices, groceries, hotels, tours, houses of worship, veterinarians, and automotive facilities. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it still seems, yes, it does. Thank you very much, Ms. DeLeon. I appreciate your response. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Barbara, for the presentation and clarification. I am fully supportive of this ordinance, and yeah, I'm disappointed that it was incorrectly formatted or titled, because I think it is I think in all sense of what we're trying to do with the ordinance, it is very timely that we pass this, if we want to meet the spirit of what we are trying to do with this particular ordinance, which is protect folks while they're out in public during a time when we have heightened COVID infection rate, at least for our county. I don't think that this is going to be as effective if we wait until June 15th. We may taper down in our numbers by then. And so if we really want to have an impact, I think we need to pass this sooner than June 15th. And so whether that's through a special council meeting on Friday or some other time, I would like to see this come back for a vote before the 2 weeks. I also do have a question for staff regarding the timeline on this, and I apologize if I missed it earlier. But in terms of this particular ordinance, do we have to rescind it once we no longer obviously want this to be in effect, or does it have some type of sunset clause or something like that? Is because I would hate for us to then have to wait another 2 weeks to rescind this if we were basically ready to do away with this ordinance. Would hate to have it kind of like lingering out for another 2 weeks before we could do that. So yeah, some clarification on what it would take for us to do away with this once we're ready.
And I can answer that if I may, Barbara DeLeon, Mayor and Councilor Vasquez. The ordinance is written so that there is a termination specified. It will run concurrently with a declared emergency for which guidance from the state and federal government warrants the use of face coverings.
Okay.
So the way it's written would enable us to essentially not have to go through several steps to make it not in effect. It will run concurrently with a declared emergency.
Great, thank you. So we don't have to rescind it then after we...
Councilor Vasquez, looks like Jennifer has her hand up. If I could ask her to respond.
Okay, absolutely.
Yes, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is Jennifer Vega Brown. If you like the ordinance as it is, one way to have it quickly put into place is to talk about the language that you like in it, have an emergency proclamation from the mayor, and then it just comes back by resolution for approval. And that's the whole point of the mayor's emergency proclamation ordinance, so that these things can be done very quickly. So that is a very quick way for you to do it. If you can talk about the language, then the mayor can draft a proclamation, and then in 3 days you can approve it.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And this is maybe more a logistical question. If the mayor was not supportive of this particular ordinance and therefore wouldn't declare it in an emergency declaration acting on his own behalf, this would be the only other way we could go about doing it. Is that correct, through this ordinance?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Mayor. Those are all my questions for now.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry, Mayor, I was sorry. Yeah, thank you, Barbara, for the presentation. I too am strongly in support of this. I've been reading a very interesting article that has quite a bit of science and whatnot around sort of. It's called From the Medical Dispatch. It's a doctor who was a surgeon now working for the New Yorker. called the Amid the Coronavirus Crisis, a Regimen for Reentry. And it has lots of information in there about masks. And is it 100% foolproof? No. And I know my colleagues are reading, and I want to say very specifically and publicly that we're all reading a lot of research. I think both positive and negative, right, for face masks. And honestly, I think this is the only way forward for us to open up safely. We can't, I mean, the best is social distancing. Can we do this until they meaning CDC and others develop a vaccine? No, we can't. So this is sort of the next best thing. So they talk about sort of like a cocktail of things that are required, and this is one of them. So I'm happy to send this to David Maestas so others can read it. I'm happy to send it publicly to anybody that wants to, but I feel very strongly that in order for us to move forward, this needs to be a part of that. So I'm hoping that Mayor will put out an emergency proclamation so that we can get this approved immediately. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sorg, you have another question, or did you forget to put your hand down?
No, Mr. Mayor, I do have some other things I wanted to add, but I'd be willing to give it up to Councilor Abeyta-Stube if she would like to speak first.
Sure, Councilor Abeyta-Stube.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Sorg, as well for yielding the floor. I appreciate this very much, Barbara, for you to share this. As we move forward to looking at what it looks like to open up and have those safety measures in place, I really do feel strongly that this is one tool that we can use. And it's especially important when we are in those commercial and retail spaces where we cannot social distance. We're very much together. As Mayor Pro Tem said, it is not 100%, but it is an effective tool to help against that. And I think when we look long-term about what it means to live in this COVID positive world, that we need to look at all those resources. So thank you, and I am in strong support of this.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Sorg.
My buttons don't work. Oh, well, we'll work that later. Thank you. This is Councilor Sorg. Yeah, I'm in strong favor of wearing masks, period. And we've all gotten the emails saying they don't do any good. This is not true. We all know that our vapors that we speak and cough and sneeze go out from our bodies, our faces, and they can infect other people if you have the virus. And people forget that you can spread that virus for a couple, 3 days, even when you don't have symptoms, before the symptoms start. So people think only people that are sick that it's protecting, but it's not. It's people that are asymptomatic that can spread the virus. And we don't know. You don't know who's who. You don't know if you have the virus. You don't know if the people you're talking to have the virus. This is clear cut. It definitely is something that we have to try to do as much as possible. And of course, keep in mind those exceptions. Those exceptions are important. I see people driving around in a car. Okay, go ahead, but it's not necessary inside of a car. And the other exceptions, which are some of the things that people are complaining about. So yes, I'm also in favor of this resolution with an exception or two. If I could just point this out, I don't want to make a motion right now, but I'm thinking there might be some ambiguity in the if you look at section 9-44, part A, subpart B. At the end of there, it says, which includes parks. that there's somewhere else in the, I didn't write it down, but somewhere else in this ordinance, it does make exception in parks. For example, if you're running in a park, as an exercise, and you're not required to wear a mask when you're running, especially if you're all by yourself. So I would rather put in there, which includes parks when gathering more than 5 people in the park. That's something I would support, something along those lines, according to that effect. Connections with capital B section, it says driving and masks. Also with part E, when exercising, part E A in that same section. And then of course, there are cases, we've heard them, that there are masks can be very detrimental to a person's heart health when they can't breathe very well. This needs to be well known because I've gotten emails saying, you can't make me wear a mask all the time. Well, we aren't making you wear a mask all the time. So this has to be clearly made aware of in the public. Okay, and another thing in the state PHO, it requires employees to wear a mask that work in these businesses, but it doesn't require customers. Is that correct, Barbara?
Yes, this is Barbara DeLeon, Mayor and Councilor Sword. That is correct. The requirement for employees is very clear from the state public health order, but the requirement for others in businesses is a recommendation for the employer to provide masks or offer masks to those.
Is there any penalty for employees not wearing a mask? For this?
Mayor and Councilor Sorg, I don't know what the penalty is. I would have to get that information for you.
Okay.
For employees who are not wearing the mask. That's your question?
Yeah, or any state requirement for masks or recommendations for masks. Is there a fine, a penalty of anything for those? I'm just curious on knowing that.
Okay.
I think that covers everything I was going to mention here, Mr. Mayor. So thank you very much. I'll pass.
Thank you. Councilor Flores, did you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And of course, I too am very much aligned with the face coverings, the masks. And I did speak with some constituents over the weekend. I did respond to some of I think I had close to 4,000 emails. I think I went through about 200 on Saturday, and then of course there were about over 3,000 this morning and yesterday. And the only person who made a little bit of sense he's supportive of the face mask, but he said, he said that Kim Stewart, Sheriff Stewart, brought up at the county meeting that there'd be no way to enforce this, and to have a law that you can't enforce is useless. But I disagree with that. With all due respect to the sheriff, whom I hold in high esteem, I think that there are a lot of laws, many laws on the books that are not enforced. Sometimes they're not feasible. Sometimes it's personnel limitation. So I'm in full support of this, and in explaining to my constituents that it was a necessary thing to do, and enforcement would follow. Perhaps it wouldn't, but I'm in full support. But my question now, I think there are I think there's one other counselor who wants to make a comment after I'm done. But my question at this point, based on what you've heard so far, Attorney Vega Brown, do you think that the discussion has deviated in substance from the, I should say, the way it was worded insofar as the agenda item 7.1? And if so, if not, we can have it for our next council meeting. But then, well, wait a minute. Councilor Vasquez said that he would rather have an emergency proclamation by the mayor because it would go into effect right away. So maybe this is maybe this is the silver lining in a cloud. Where are we on that, Attorney Vega Brown?
Mayor and Council, this is Jennifer Vega Brown, your city attorney. The discussion has not deviated from the agenda item. However, you have not made any amendments to the ordinance. So I'm not really clear on what your question is. You can bring it back. You can bring back an ordinance with amended changes or a different ordinance altogether. What you cannot do is require that the mayor make a proclamation. If he doesn't desire to make a proclamation, then your method of putting legislation in place is an ordinance.
Okay, so in terms of my question, then we can't require the mayor to do that. He'll make decisions as the one he made last Friday. Very much on his very own. But I think my question then goes to my question has more to do with procedure. So I believe you said that it doesn't really change in substance insofar as our discussion today. And so then the next step would be to bring it to council for a full vote on June 15th. Or as Councilor Vasquez suggested, to bring it up at a next special meeting on Friday. I'm looking at how to expedite this. That's all.
Okay, it's before you now, so you can make changes to it, or you can add to it, or you can direct staff to add or subtract from it and then bring it back. Yes.
And then when would we be able to vote on it?
Well, that's entirely up to you. We need 72 hours to post it. We would have to prepare the packet, so that I would defer to Mr. Maestas for that, but I don't know when your next scheduled meeting is, if you have one this Friday or not, but I would defer to Mr. Maestas.
I don't believe one is scheduled yet, but we have until tomorrow to schedule it. So thank you very much, Ms. Vega Brown.
Let's see, Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you. This is Councilor Bencomo. I'm frustrated that we don't get to vote on this today. I think it's timely. I think we've been asking for this for a couple weeks now. So, I would obviously like to hear from you, Mr. Mayor. I think maybe we're making assumptions, maybe not. I would strongly urge you to, the rest of the council is speaking about this to make a decision as quickly as possible so that this can be put out as quickly as possible. And then if you disagree, then I would like us to have a meeting Friday.
Okay, so do me a favor, Barbara, can you go back to your chart where you showed the city, you compared the different So I'm looking at the state's order.
Okay.
And I'm looking at, it's on page 6, and it's item number 7, where it says, I hereby direct as follows. And under 7, it says, unless a healthcare provider instructs otherwise, all individuals shall wear a mask or multi-layer cloth face covering in public settings except when eating, drinking, or exercising. Further, all individuals should comply with the COVID safe practices or CSPs for all New Mexican section of All Together New Mexico COVID Safe Practices for Individuals and Employers. And I guess that I'm wanted some more clarification. When she says shall wear a mask in public, doesn't that, now that one, unlike the county, which they just can make rules for the unincorporated areas of the county, the state, the governor, I would think, covers the whole state, both city and county. Jennifer, can you comment on that, or Barbara?
Mayor and Council, this is Jennifer Vega Brown. I'm sorry, your question is, the state covers the city and the county. Yes, that's correct. So whatever state has put out, it's covered in both the city and the county. So that's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, so technically, if it rose to that level, much like the state police are the ones who issue cease and desist, they theoretically could do that on this face covering, could they not?
Yes, that's correct. For the state mandate.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. And so, Councilor Bencomo, in light of that, that's why I felt that since the state's already got that covered, I was obviously, it was important that we have something specifically for the city and our city facilities so that our city police and codes can enforce that as needed. In light of that, that is why I would choose not to issue an emergency proclamation regarding the face coverings. Councilor Flores?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yes, Councilor Bencomo?
I mean, along the line of that argument, then none of your, all of your emergency declarations are aligned with what the governor has declared. So are you saying we wouldn't have needed to do anything this whole time?
No, I wanted the city to be able to enforce our own specifically, whereas in the past, if we needed to have law enforcement out there, we had to wait until the state police did that, as opposed to our own city proclamation ordinance, then the city can act on it quicker.
Right. And that's sort of what we're all saying we would like to see.
Sure, I understand that. But I feel that frankly, I mean, granted, it's the responsible thing to do and it's the respectful thing to do, that is to wear a mask. And I think it's very difficult to mandate those two things. I believe that when you're out in public, you should have one on. When you're dealing with, the other day we had to have a meeting there at City Hall to sign documents. We all had our mask on. When we have our individual offices, okay, I understand that. But when we go out in public, if there's nobody there, that would mean that we're supposed to have one. I mean, even if it's walking to your vehicle that's 10 feet away, I just think that, and there's nobody there, and if it's 6 o'clock in the morning, I think that should be a person's prerogative if they want to use it. I mean, there's nobody there, there's nobody around, but yet you're still in violation if you don't have a face mask on or face covering. I just think that that's something there that the public would be able to decipher whether or not they should be used or not. Yes, Chief Gallagher?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Patrick Gallagher, Las Cruces Police Chief, for the record. Everybody's talking about enforcement. I figured we could weigh in again, as I did previously. The Las Cruces Police Department command staff, not just me, has met on this issue, specifically with regard to enforcement. And we have several concerns, and I'd like to share those with you. I've highlighted most of them before. And this command staff I wanted to mention has over 200 years of police experience, but most importantly, 200 years of police experience in the city of Las Cruces. And they have very serious concerns about the ramifications of enforcing this face mask requirement. Breaks down into 4 different concerns. One is the non-compliance and, in fact, outright defiance that we would expect to see from some people. Second one.
I'm sorry, but I can't hear him.
Chief, can you get a little closer to the mic?
That helps. Yeah, looks like I got full bars. Any better? Moving closer?
A little bit.
Okay. So as I was saying, we had the command staff who met and discussed this, and they have over 200 years of policing experience in Las Cruces. My experience is limited in Las Cruces. That's why I felt it was important to bring them into the discussion. And their concerns are fourfold. And the first one has to do with what we're going to face with regard to non-compliance in this issue. And in fact, we expect certain people will outright defy this order. And this is what my command staff tells me. In fact, what they're saying is people who are going to wear masks are wearing masks. And an ordinance with a threat of enforcement is not going to change that very much. We issued 7,000 speeding citations in Las Cruces last year. Did that stop speeding in Las Cruces last year? No. So giving somebody a citation, and that's what it would be, a citation for not wearing a mask, that person will take the citation, fold it up, put it in their pocket, and walk away without wearing a mask. That's the least of our concerns. The problem is when you have somebody who's outright defiant, and we believe there would be some people, not a lot of people, but some, and this is a concern, who will be out there looking for confrontation, looking for that tort claim, looking for that big check from the city for us trying to issue a citation, which would lead to possibly a use of force or an arrest because they're defiant, and that's a concern as well. The second, and these are in no particular order, is the risk of officer infection. Unfortunately, we just had our first officer test positive for the virus over the weekend, and that's a great concern to us. And we've done a lot to limit officers' exposure to the public as a result of the virus, as everyone has. So we're very concerned about that issue. Expecting us to enforce this, again, it's a petty misdemeanor. Expecting us to enforce this with any vigor would further expose officers to possibly contracting the virus. And our concern with regard to that, officers, we know there's a risk in our job, but officers, our fear, the command staff, is if we lose enough officers either to the virus or quarantine or isolation as a result of the exposure, we won't have enough officers on the street to prevent crime. As I told you before, property crime has risen since this has started. Our fear is that if we have enough officers not on the street, we will see a rise in violent crime on the street. We have 20 vacancies right now. As we're operating at 80 to 90% of capacity. Taking a few more officers up the street would really hamper our efforts. And we do worry about violent crime increasing and response time to crimes for service, crimes in process also increasing. The other area we're concerned about is dealing with individuals with mental and or behavioral health issues. Dealing with those people as we do on a daily basis, and our command staff deals with them in our offices on a daily basis. Very concerned about dealing with them and trying to enforce a mask requirement on someone who might not understand it because of their mental problems, might in fact become outright defiant or violent because perhaps it's a triggering event for one of their mental health issues. Again, leading to the possible use of force or an arrest in circumstances we don't want to see. And the biggest, I shouldn't say biggest, but the final concern that we have is the possible adverse effect it would have on police-community relations. We all see what's going on in the country right now, and putting officers in a position to enforce something like this, which we believe, again, those who are going to wear a mask are wearing it. So we're going to be dealing with a very defiant people who refuse to wear a mask, and we're worried about that increasing negative interaction with the public. It'll be filmed. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on video. There will be negative ramifications as far as the police-community relationship. As everybody knows, New York City, they call the epicenter of this virus. The NYPD, my former agency, had been in the business of enforcing the face mask requirement up in New York until they were ordered not to. And they were ordered not to because of the concerns I've just mentioned to you. One in particular is allegations of racial disparity with regard to the enforcement of the face mask requirement. New York actually hired a team of thousands of people to be, quote unquote, social distancing ambassadors rather than giving it to police officers. Having police officers do a job like this is kind of like using a sledgehammer to deal with the job that requires a scalpel. That's part of our concern. If it isn't, and it seems like it would be passed, we understand that, what would our plan be? Our plan would be continue to educate everybody, request voluntary compliance in every possible way, shape, or form. Codes enforcement would be a personnel who would mostly do the enforcement. Remember, it's a petty misdemeanor, so it has to be witnessed by the officer to take any action. We'd also use what the governor called, what the New Mexico State Police are calling, at her request, positive peer pressure to enforce this type of an ordinance and pass, if it does pass. And just like the sheriff did, and again, you mentioned she's concerned about the enforcement as we are already handing out masks to people. We have several thousand, each officer has one, codes enforcement has them, and we're handing out masks. And we think that's the way to go rather than threat of citations or arrest. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We have a couple of council members who'd like to make some comments with Councilor Beta-Stuvi and Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Chief, for your comments. On this third point that you brought up for having concerns about mental and behavioral issues, I do believe if individuals have those risks, I believe they should be under the exemption of not being able to wear the mask. That seems like that would be able to help with that issue with those people that would not be able to do it due to either mental or physical issues. I am glad to hear that you are already passing out masks. As when we first talked about this issue, I mentioned that as being the first part of what to do as far as that enforcement piece was just education and handing out the masks. When we have these conversations, it's disturbing in some ways for me. I mean, I've been very vocal about knowing what it's like to live with underlying conditions. And it's not just myself. I think you've all seen the little girl that comes with me here who has one as well. And we were just up at UNMH for her doctor's appointment. So the first thing they told us, wear that mask. Make sure you have those masks on. Why? It's to protect people. And when we are not able to social distance in retail spaces where we're around food, where in those small confined spaces, it now becomes perhaps even a life and death issue for those with underlying conditions just to go out and about. And though most people are respectful, sometimes people aren't. And you are going to have people that want to outright defy orders just because. But we also have people that kill each other straight up just because. And that doesn't make it right. And that doesn't mean that we should let it pass. And so if we are going to move forward with these other phases, we have to have protections. We have to balance. And it's not just for our own safety, it's for the safety of others. Because when we walk past, we don't know how we're going to possibly inflict harm on others. And so we have to look at that. I do understand, and I know that we don't want to make this super punitive. And I thought that was part of the reason of making this ordinance as well, because if we left it up to the state, the fines could be up to $5,000. Whereas if the city took over, then we were able to balance out that fine distribution. Can that be re-explained? Is that also still the case, or is that different?
Well, with regard to the fines, I can't speak to what the state fines are. The only enforcement agencies that can enforce the state law, the public health law, are state agencies. So that much I can tell you. As far as, again, back to the command staff, everybody's concerned about this, rightfully so right now. 6 months from now, when these citations, and it probably will be 6 or 9 months, that they'll be heard in court, it's everybody's belief that most of them will be dismissed. So again, we're putting officers in risk of having contact with people and or using force on people to enforce this for something that'll be dismissed down the road for the most part. Your concern is valid. I'm glad you agree with me with regard to the people with mental illness, but it also brings up a question that I had. Some of these ordinances and laws is very confusing, as Barbara's charts showed. Confusion and enforcement is never a good thing. But how do I know if somebody has a illness that prevents them from wearing a mask? We're not going to be asking for doctor's notes. So in essence, if somebody says, I have a physical condition that prevents me from wearing a mask, that's it. There's nothing more to do. And we can
And that's good. That's all you have to do.
well, actually, we're going to hand them a mask. That's what we're going to do.
If I may interrupt real quick, looks like Lynn Gallagher has her hand up. Ms. Gallagher, you have a comment?
Mayor, City Council, I just wanted to, from a program perspective in dealing with individuals with some vulnerable issues in senior programs and in transportation, the mental and behavioral piece becomes critical in an ordinance like this. And the ordinance itself has a statement, has a quote in it, a section D that says businesses and organizations performing critical governmental functions must take all reasonable steps to prohibit any member of the public who is not wearing a face covering from entering. We have already had a number of incidents in transit related to individuals handing them a mask and this causing, whether it be an issue with PTSD or other issue for them, and it has almost elevated to violence. And as Chief Gallagher indicated, calling in law enforcement and asking them to perform that function in an authoritarian fashion, as you all know, in mental and behavioral crisis causes an inflated result. And so that section alone causes our staff from a program perspective, when the seniors present themselves as senior programs to pick up their meals, if this gets to a situation where we have to ask them, we need you to wear a mask and we can prohibit you from being on premises, and then not wear a mask, law enforcement gets called in and it can quickly escalate. So I would just err on the side of taking into consideration those medical exemptions and how in fact they could be identified by program folks who are equally confused as far as those expectations.
Thank you, Lynn. Councilor Beta-Suvi, did you have any more comments?
No, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, thank you for your comments. I know how difficult this must be. I appreciate bringing your command folks together and all the experience. And lastly, my thoughts and prayers go out to the law enforcement officer that got that tested positive for COVID. I hope that he or she is getting all that they need and that we're taking care of them and the family like we need to be. And please let us know if there's anything further that we need to do to help. I think we've set up some safety nets. So I truly appreciate that. And we of course want to limit as much contact as we can that law enforcement has with the public because of COVID, and it must seem overwhelming, right? The fears and whatever. So this is not taken lightly. I can tell you that there's so much that I think, for speaking for myself, that I have considered, so much information that I'm reading, and we have to navigate these waters. I mean, it just is. And so I've appreciated hearing from Councilor Beta-Suvi and her, being so courageous to talk about sort of the limitations as someone who has chronic illness and the precautions that they both have to take. And so, I don't want to make it any more difficult than it is. And we've talked about voluntary enforcement, encouraging people to do this. And I don't want this to seem like, it's punitive in nature. Again, what we're trying to do is open up our economy, and this is a way to do this. Is using the masks and or face coverings as a way to navigate this, so that we are able to get back to. I wouldn't say a normal, but to me is something that we must do and continue to do as we move through this. The other thing is I had a conversation this morning with Sheriff Stewart. She has quite a few face masks. Everybody has seen that she's advertised that she was going to be out essentially at a location giving out face masks. She says the majority of the people that came obviously needed to be there, needed a mask, and most of them could not afford the mask. And so, and lastly, a lot of them came from the city of Las Cruces. And so we need to make masks available to people. She said, I have 2,000 of them. Do you want them? And I said, yes. So they're sitting in my office. I went up there this morning to get some paperwork that I wanted to prepare for today. And they're there. And so what I'm encouraging is that we need to have more distribution sites. I'm happy to schedule something and do it myself. If others want to do that, happy to do that as well. But the fact remains that there is still a need out there. And that it's especially, it's an opportunity to bring awareness. As much awareness and education that we have done, and the radio spots and all the PSAs, we still have a huge group of people that don't hear, that just don't get the information for whatever reason. And so I very much appreciate and respect your comments and your feedback, Chief Gallagher, but I also think it's an opportunity for community policing to do what they do best, and that is to engage the public and bring awareness and expect volunteer compliance, but also, and not get into those kinds of infractions. It just isn't necessary. If we have to, and there's a lot of research out there to be able to glean from, working specifically with folks with behavioral health and mental health issues. And I get it. I'm in the business, so I understand it. And there are lots of projects and programs out there that you may not ask for a doctor's excuse, but maybe that's what is necessary. I don't know, and I'm not suggesting that. But again, this is just a one tool, as Councilor Becastuvi says, in our toolbox to move into the direction of having, some more normal. I don't think we're ever going to get back to normal, but at least, some semblance of normal. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And if I may say before I go to Councilor Vasquez, and I say this all due respect, Mayor Pro Tem, when you said about it's an opportunity for our police officers to, engage with the public, I guess I look at it in this way.
I said do what they do best and community policing. That's what I said.
Okay, community policing. Okay, so, but basically to engage with the public, to talk to them about why they need a mask. So let's just say hypothetically, statistically, 100 times, the time you have, say 1 out of 100 times, you're going to catch it. I would rather our police officers be used for those different emergencies because we know that every time that they have interaction with the public, that number keeps dropping, 99, 98, 97, something's going to happen. And that's, if we weren't dealing with a virus that is so sneaky, that is invisible, that is extremely contagious, that is lethal, I would see what you're saying. But that's why I struggle, but that's why I don't want to do the emergency order. But I just wanted to point that out. Councilor Vasquez and then Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to Councilor Becastuvi and Gandara for your thoughtful comments. I think, Councilor Gandara, your comments are spot on. I think in terms of the opportunity that we have to create a safe environment and educational opportunity. I think I heard Commissioner Sanchez say that during the county meeting when they passed their resolution. I think we want to create a type of social norm in the city that's reinforced by a municipal ordinance that creates those conditions on the ground that allow us to reopen our businesses safely. And so I think this is part of that effort that we need to make to really normalize this, and knowing that some will not wear it, refuse to wear it, think that it infringes on their constitutional rights, and perhaps even purposefully try to antagonize others. I think we have to expect that those folks will be out there. I see it no different as folks that antagonize for other reasons, right? Whether it's the Second Amendment, whether it's something as simple as wearing a seatbelt, right? There's some people who are just not going to want to comply no matter the situation. And so I don't think it's any different in the sense of, in this case, you know, the state's already enforcing it, the county or the state already has the emergency proclamation, the county does as well. El Paso, the city of El Paso did this way before we did. I think they've had their face mask ordinance, I don't know for how long, at least a month maybe, where you can't walk into a business without a poster on a gas station that says you cannot enter unless you have a face mask on. Does that work? Are there still individuals entering without face masks? Probably. I don't think police are getting called in those situations, right? But I think it is encouraging compliance. It is reinforcing a social norm in the community, and it is causing those folks who are on the fence or who might have forgotten a mask at home to go back and get their mask. So I think this ordinance has the potential to do more good than harm. I trust in Chief Gallagher and his folks that they will have the discretion to err on the side of community policing on this particular ordinance, right? And use it as an education tool, and also, you know, opportunity to hand out masks, get to know our community a little bit better, maybe even answer questions about other things that residents that might be on residents' minds. And so, you know, for those reasons, I do support it. Like I said, we just have to come to terms with the reality that just some folks are just going to refuse to wear it. That doesn't mean that there's going to be violent outcomes or confrontations. I think it just means that we have to be our police officers have to use their discretion in how they handle and approach those situations, and de-escalate them and let folks go on their way. So with that, I'll pass it on to my colleagues. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you. Thanks, Councilor Vasquez. And thanks, Chief. I hear you. You've been pretty vocal about all the reasons you don't support this, but I also appreciate you coming here saying, well, if you're going to pass this, these are the things we're going to do, because that's what I want to hear. I want to hear how we're collaborating together. I want to hear how we're working together. I find this resistance to meeting us in the middle so interesting. People are demanding to reopen and also to not wear a mask. I think that is just so interesting to me. And so I don't know what the fight to the first seatbelt law was like, but I imagine it was kind of like this. I don't know what the fight for people not smoking tobacco in public places was like, but I imagine it was a little like this. And so the first speed limit law, I keep hearing Chief and the sheriff talk about policing behaviors. We've been doing that for a really long time. And the reality is that there is this new virus. We don't know what it's going to do. We don't know how it's going to live on in our communities forever. There is just this new normal. And frankly, that every decision since March has been difficult. Every single one. There is no winning, regardless of what we do. But we have to try our best. Like, we have to try everything at our disposal. So, there's all these social norms, like Councilor Vasquez said, and I just wonder, I keep thinking about what all these other fights for other policing, other social norms that are now quite common, like wearing a seatbelt were like, and I just wonder, honestly, it's the same thing. It's a public health issue. It's a safety issue. So, I honestly can't believe we're even debating this.
Chief Gallagher, you have your hand up?
I did, yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify something Councilor Bencomo said. Police departments don't get to not support ordinances, ma'am. I just want to make sure you make the decision fully informed as to the difficulties we're going to have. We don't get that right to support an ordinance or not. We just want to make sure you're fully informed before we go down that road. And as Councilor Vasquez and both Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Gonda said, there will be tremendous discretion exercise with regard to this, specifically because as a petty misdemeanor, officers do have discretion as to whether or not to take enforcement action. So, and one of the reasons I tell you that is because you don't have to be a magician to realize this will pass. I can I can count, but down the road, when you start asking how many citations were issued or arrests were made, these are the things that I'm telling you might stand in the way of there being a slew of citations or arrests. We will seek voluntary compliance. Officers will have discretion. We will hand out masks, and only under the very last minute, or it's not last minute, last ditch situations will we conduct any enforcement action. I want you guys to be aware of that.
I see Councilor Vasquez and Gonda with their hands up, or did you just forget to take them down? Okay, so I want to leave you with, Councilor Flores, I'm sorry, you have a comment? You need to unmute yourself, please.
There you go. Thank you. So this is for Chief Gallagher. Chief Gallagher, I totally understand your concern. And I believe that our department, our police officers are trained, correct me if I'm wrong, are trained to deal with individuals who are, quote, defiant, unquote. So in terms of the face mask situation, I think, I can't speak for the rest, for my colleagues, but I certainly wouldn't want a situation where a person isn't wearing a mask and doesn't want to wear one, even after one has been offered, doesn't want to take it. I wouldn't want that to escalate to a point where it would, be a riotous type of situation. So are police officers trained to sense where the wind is blowing in a situation like this and just back off and wish them a nice day?
Yes. As far as de-escalating situations, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so in those situations where you sense that there is defiance, there's certain behavior that, I mean, it's not like the person has an A-15 or whatever those horrible weapons are called. I mean, the person just standing there saying, hey, man, or you know what, you're not going to tell me what to do. I live in a free country. I have constitutional rights, yada, yada, blah, blah. But it's not just the words, it's just that behavior with that person. And you can just pretty much size that person up. So you would back off.
Case by case situation, ma'am. I can't make a decision for an officer without being there. But yes, the training they have and the discretion that they can exercise, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Especially for a petty misdemeanor, which this would be.
Yes, it would be a petty misdemeanor, and it's not worth anybody's time whatsoever in that situation. I mean, you would want that person to say, oh, yeah, I forgot my mask. It bugs me when I wear it, but yeah, I'll take it, and then walk away and not put it on. I don't think that I'm not a police officer. I don't have police training whatsoever, but it seems that in that situation, the police officer would say, okay, fine, have a nice day, and go, everybody goes home. Well, not the police officer, but everybody goes away and there's no incident. So I think that given that scenario, or given the fact that there is police training in that regard, somehow you still feel that having an ordinance on the books like that would still be a difficult burden or burdensome on your department?
Well, the possibility always exists because of situation is different. But to hear you speak and the other councilors speak, the common sense way in which you're speaking with regard to the enforcement of this, that you don't expect us to be this heavy-handed mask police running around enforcing this thing is reassuring and refreshing at the same time.
Oh, good. Well, I'm happy to hear that, Chief. And I know that Lieutenant Daines and Police Officer Israel Rodriguez have been wonderful community police officers, or wonderful with the community in their relations. So I hope that continues, and I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Gandara that I think that is what you do best. I mean, you're trained to be law enforcement and all that sort of stuff, but community relations. And I think that we can, the police officers, I mean, God bless you and everything. My grandfather was, I think I shared this with you before, he was chief of police for the state of Chihuahua. And, excuse me, that was my great-grandfather, Antonio Flores Fernandez. And my nephew was a police officer with LAPD. So I have, but the country right now has a horrible black eye with everything that's going on with the killing of George Floyd. He's been charged with third-degree murder at this point. But so I don't foresee this as something where we're saying, yeah, go after everybody who doesn't have a mask and just, throw them in prison for 10 years. Nothing like that. And I don't even think that, I think that when you have an ordinance like this and it's a petty misdemeanor, I think it has to be that way because it's an ordinance, it's law enforcement. But I don't think anybody's really expecting anyone to end up in jail over this, or a police officer endangering his or her life. So I think the police officer would have discretion as to when to walk away in a situation or when to approach it. So thank you very much for hearing me out, Chief Gallagher, and I respect the dilemma that you find yourself in, as well as your department. And thank you also, Ms. Gallagher, for your input.
Thank you.
Before I get to Jennifer, she has a comment. I just want to say one word, and it's kind of timely, Councilor Flores, and so I've been an employer for about 35 years, and this is just my own philosophy. I would never do a job that I wouldn't expect my employees to do a job that I myself wouldn't do. I mean, I've literally done everything from mopping to cleaning the bathroom, you name it, okay? And in some respects, we, the city council, through our city manager, I think about the dangers that our emergency responders, our police, our fire, what they go through. And I think if I had one job in the city, I'd probably want to be a firefighter. I think that would probably, I wouldn't mind being a police officer for like a day. And specifically just so I could write tickets for people speeding in front of me, okay? But I don't think I could, what I'm trying to get at is this virus is just so sneaky, it's so deadly, and why risk?
That's why you need a mask.
Excuse me, Councilor. Why risk our police officers to go to interact with members of the public who may not? Sure, granted, there may be some who may want to have one, but there may be some who say, you know what, don't tell me to wear a mask. And for all we know, they could be a carrier. That's why I said, every time they interact, it's one more time, possibly they could get it. That's all I'm trying to get at. And I guess my question would be, think of it yourself. Would you, if you had a son or daughter, for almost all of us here are parents, if you had a son or daughter that was a police officer and they were said, so we're told, hey, go make sure they have a mask on. I mean, I don't know. I think in light of certain situations, I mean, they do incredible work, but to just require that when really they've got a million other things to deal with. That's all I wanted to point out. Jennifer, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is Jennifer Vega Brown. I always hesitate to give you any type of legal advice on the record because that's a dangerous thing to do. But I am concerned with a couple of things that I just heard. So I would recommend that when you consider any type of ordinance or any piece of legislation, that you should consider only things that can be consistently, routinely, and evenly enforced. If they cannot be, this could raise other very serious issues, constitutional issues. And one of the things that I heard was that the officer will pick and choose, will have the discretion to walk away or enforce. What that is doing is placing an officer in a position to use too much discretion in certain situations. There are certain laws that have to be routinely enforced. An officer will always have discretion to issue a warning. They will always have discretion to not charge a particular crime. However, when this is done broadly and you are applying it to an entire ordinance, it could raise other problems. I'll give you an example. Our DWI roadblocks. The discretion for police officers in a DWI roadblock is removed because it has to be constitutionally valid. And there is no discretion to pick and choose who will be stopped. Because if you do pick and choose, that's when you run into racial disparity and equal protection issues and other constitutional issues, arbitrary and capricious issues. So I urge you to please consider very carefully ordinances that can be consistently, routinely, and evenly enforced without having to pass an ordinance. Whether it's a petty misdemeanor or a felony, it's still the law, and officers are still required to enforce the law.
Thank you, Jennifer. Looks like we have Councilor Sorg, then Councilor Beta-Stuvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, Councilor Flores. I know you had your hand up, but were you done? Were you done with your questions? No, you still had a few more. You need to unmute yourself.
So because this is a follow-up to what I was saying to Chief Gallagher, as far as what our city attorney just said, I don't think that the ordinance would have language that says that it's discretionary enforcement. And I think that when you have any law whatsoever, there's always a there's always a potential, like there was a lot of brouhaha, if you all might recall, around the smoking ordinances in different cities. Santa Monica was called the Republic of Santa Monica. It was called the communist type, place to live, and yet it's really probably the best place in the world to live. So I don't see this as being something that I think that every officer is trained to abide by the law, and the city has faced lawsuits where there's been some sort of, they go beyond those parameters. And this isn't a question of having something on the books that allows a police officer to say yay to one and no to others. It doesn't set forth, except for maybe the breastfeeding in public laws that were kicked around a few years ago. Where women were singled out because women are the ones that do the breastfeeding. But in this situation, I just don't understand that part, Attorney Vega Brown. I don't think that the statute would have language that would leave any room for abuse. And I think because there's always that discretion, and of course that was your line of work before, but. So I just wanted to say that I don't think the statute would in any way indicate that there'd be that kind of language that would lead to abusive behavior or abusive law enforcement. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I don't know if Jennifer had her hand up for a comment or forgot to put it down. If not, I'll go to Councilor Sorg.
I'm sorry, I forgot to put it down.
Okay, no problem. Councilor Sorg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I haven't weighed in on the enforcement of this ordinance yet. I've always had my, been kind of undecided, but I was willing to go ahead and pass it if I was convinced. What I've been thinking about is all the laws that local governments and state governments have passed in the past that are bad laws. Laws that discriminate, laws that do dumb things, laws that just aren't good laws. And this is a law that's dumb, of course. But we're loaded with these kind of bad laws or laws that are unenforceable, and makes me wonder just what this is going to do if we do pass it. A petty misdemeanor, Attorney Vega Brown, is what kind of a penalty? One more time, so we get clear we have that. Or Mayor, do you know it?
Yeah, $500, up to $500 and up to 90 days in jail.
Okay. Okay, so let me ask those that propose this fine, this enforcement, what's your purpose? Do you think it's going to force people to wear masks or enlighten them to wear masks? I'd like to know.
And who's that question to, Councilor?
Anyone who wants to answer it.
Okay, well, then the next one up is Councilor Beta Stuvey, and then we'll go to Councilor Flores again.
What's the purpose of having the penalty?
I was under the impression that the penalty was also in accordance with the type of misdemeanor that it was under. And also that it was by us doing it at the city level and having enforcement bring this way, it was a protection for our residents because the state enforcement goes a lot higher for the fines. And I asked to be corrected on this earlier if that was the case, but I will challenge a little bit and say, when we have this, yes, there are some people that are not going to follow it just for the sheer fact that they don't want to. And that is unfortunate. But we also have to think of those residents that are at risk when those people don't wear the mask. And they don't have a say in that. They can't help those circumstances. And so I feel that it is our duty to help bring up that viewpoint as well, that we need to give some sort of protection for those people as well that do not have a choice on being able to, they have to go, you have to go to the grocery store, you have to go to these places, you're going to be in tight spaces together. And as the mayor pointed out, this virus poses great risk and harm to people.
Yes, yes.
And because of that, you have to have some sort of protection. And this is one of those tools because it also poses harm to our economy as well. If we have certain cases, this is a tool that we have to help mitigate that risk. And that is the greater good on that.
Okay, what you're saying is correct. It's true. Those are good reasons for wearing a mask. But what's the purpose of having it make it a misdemeanor, petty misdemeanor for not wearing a mask?
During my presentation, the two things that I asked for compliance, I asked for the education and to hand out the masks. Those were the two factors that I focused on. And that's what I would continue because we don't want a ton of unnecessary interactions with our police officers, nor do they have the time to respond to all of it. Just as if you had two cars speeding, it is up to the discretion of the officer on which car he is going to go for. And so they have those types of discretion. So my focus has been on this, but I guess that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Okay, so can we have our law enforcement continue to do just that without putting in there a petty misdemeanor? I think the chief maybe needs to answer that question. I'm not asking you, Councilor.
I'm sorry, Councilor Sword. What is your question?
Can we have our officers tell people that they need to wear masks and offer them a mask if we don't make it a petty misdemeanor?
Sure, you could make it pass a resolution that in the city of Las Cruces you are to wear a mask. That way there it's theoretically passed that you're supposed to have a mask on, but there would be no fine if that's what you were trying to get at.
Yeah.
And then they can still use that component of education. You do it that way.
Okay, well, that's just an idea, something to think about. And so, another word about masks, about the availability of masks. In the Sun News, I believe it was Saturday, if not Sunday or last Friday, one of those 3 days, they had a long list of places where you can get masks in town. So there's a lot of masks available, I would think, from that long list. It was quite lengthy. So yeah, go to the Sun News and they will show you where masks can be purchased. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so my suggestion, if you guys want to vote on it, would be to make it a special meeting next Monday. I think the public was already expecting on the 15th, mainly because I told them. But if you want to make it on the 8th, that gives them a chance to, for the media to get it out there, for everybody to be aware of it, and then for them to kind of chime in either for or against this. Councilor Abeyta-Stube.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing that I would like to ask, as we've been moving forward, we've been talking about how this has to be a balance for health and safety, a balance to help open up our economies, to work forward living in a COVID positive world. The one thing that I will say that has been lacking in even some of the critiques is nobody's offered other solutions on ways to mitigate that risk. And I would love to hear more ways that, and scientifically proven, to help mitigate those risks and help protect those people. That is one thing that I have yet to see in any of the emails and critiques, and I've gotten a lot for masks. In fact, overwhelmingly more so far, and for protections. But I will say this, in all the ones, I'm not hearing any other ways that people are offering solutions to working together and to protect others. And so that is something that I definitely would love to hear if other people have more solutions, because as we move forward and as we see in the winter time, when we have more respiratory illnesses, when we have chances or surges, we're going to have to be adaptable, and masks are one tool, but perhaps that's not the only tool in our toolbox. So I would love to see any other ways that would help. Thank you.
Well, Councilor, again, as I mentioned, I don't know if that's something there that you'd be interested in doing, and that is having the resolution instead of an ordinance. So, something to think about. Councilor Bencomo.
Mr. Mayor, you said Monday. Why not Friday? I think, personally, the community was expecting this vote today. So I would just say the sooner the better. I'd rather get this out quickly.
Let me just ask Jennifer real quick. So Jennifer, as far as the rules, or Jennifer or Christine, as far as the rules are concerned, as far as typically how it goes, of course, is it gets advertised. Was there a certain amount of time that it has to be out there advertised? Or was it just because our council meetings met every 2 weeks that's why we would do it every 2 weeks? Once it was be advertised and then it was brought forward and then it would then be voted on 2 weeks later. Is there a specific time limit?
For a typical ordinance, we would need 2 weeks, but since this was written as an emergency, I don't have to have like a certain publication in the newspaper deadline. We would just have to make sure it was publicized in the agenda in 72 hours.
Oh, okay, now I need to clarify this, Christine. I'm not prepared to issue an emergency ordinance. So it would be a fallback to regular ordinance, just like any city council ordinance. So that's what I wanted to know about the time.
In order for it to be a regular ordinance, we would have to believe rewrite it, but I will defer to Jennifer.
Sorry, Mayor and Council, I'm just checking our charter just to be sure. It's it's the difference between an emergency ordinance and an emergency proclamation. It would not be an emergency proclamation. It would be an emergency ordinance, which is allowed pursuant to the charter. Christine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing it as two different things.
Correct. I agree with you, Jennifer.
So Jennifer, I'm sorry. So can you clarify when or if needed, that it has to be out in the public?
If section 2.10 of this charter under letter B requires a 2-week prior to consideration of the final action, except when there's an emergency ordinance. That 2 weeks is waived for an emergency ordinance. So I think we would only need to advertise it according to the OMA.
Okay, so then you're saying it could be put on, if we were to have a meeting this Friday, it could be put on, say, Friday.
Yes, we would still need to publicize it in the newspaper after the first read, correct, Christine?
It would be publicized in the paper after it's adopted.
Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify one more thing, this emergency ordinance can be brought forth by members of City Council excluding me. Is that correct?
Mayor and Council, this is Jennifer Vega Brown. Yes, City Council can bring forward an ordinance upon request.
Okay. I just want to clarify that because I just want to make sure that it's not expected that I'm going to be passing it on Friday.
Correct.
Okay. Well, then we'll have it on Friday. So,
Mayor? Sorry,
yes, Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you. Just have a quick question. So under the emergency ordinance guidelines that you set forth and that are outlined in the charter, if this particular ordinance we're discussing now has already been advertised per OMA, why can't we vote on it today? Ms. Vega Brown, or?
Councilor, you can vote on it today.
So we are technically legally compliant already. So why would, we don't even need to wait till Friday. We should just vote on it now.
Mayor and Council, this is Jennifer Vega Brown. It can come forward. I didn't hear any amendment or changes to it. So it's on the agenda and it's before you for consideration.
Great.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say, Councilor Vasquez, is, I can't speak for Councilor Bencomo when she said that people thought it was going to be today. I know that I have clearly put it out that it was supposed to be on the 15th of June. And the only reason I was asking for Friday is so that people can be aware of it and be able to discuss with or send emails pro or con to yourselves and as well as me.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought it was already public knowledge. I mean, I got several emails. I think you at least counted a few that you got this morning, maybe 5 or 6. But I've been getting emails on face masks for the last couple of days, and including some this morning. So I thought it was already public knowledge that we were talking about this today, especially since it's been published on the agenda. Is there another public push that you're referring to, or?
No, to me, I mean, when I disclose this and put it forth in Facebook through Community Watch, my other one, I probably reached 30,000 people. theoretically they're members. So I don't know which publication Councilor Bencomo was talking about. I would at the very least, through fairness to the public, 4 more days?
I can respect that, Mayor, and I think consideration to what you've put out there is fine. It's good to know that there wasn't a mistake in the agenda, right? I think the emergency ordinance language was accurate and legally compliant and according to our charter. So I don't know. I guess, yeah. So I don't know why we had thought about voting this on June 15th. This is the first I heard about June 15th. Maybe I wasn't on the community watch to see that. So I guess I came into this meeting thinking we were voting on it today, and that was what I was aware of.
Yeah, Councilor, at our meeting on Friday, May, I think it was the 22nd, I made reference that I would put it on the agenda setting the following Monday, which I did. And if you look at almost all of our ordinances, they appear on the agenda. It should have appeared today under ordinances or resolutions for discussion. And notice of proposed ordinances.
Proposed ordinance.
That's where it should have appeared, and it obviously it didn't. And I never gave word that it to be done as an emergency ordinance. And so, David, you have a.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. If I could jump in, you are correct in noting that when you said it would be on the agenda, it would be an ordinance, and you did mention the 2 reads, or at least it was my understanding for the 2 different reads. So again, in summary, the wording was not to have the emergency, although it is okay by ordinance and we could pass it because the emergency in there, the emergency word is in there, that was not the original intent. So there probably are several people out there who may have thought that the final vote would be at a different time. And if we do vote now, then yes, there is a potential that were people who thought it might be a different meeting based on the wording. So again, my apologies for that. That I take responsibility for that confusion and having that additional word in the title for the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think just to meet in the middle here, and at least for me personally, if this is an emergency ordinance, so I don't want to wait 2 weeks, or else it's not really an emergency if we wait that long, right? So I'm happy to wait until Friday, Mayor. That allows us to send more communication out to the public about this. But that's just me, so I'll leave it at that.
Sure. Councilor Flores, looks like you have another comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I understood. I believe I believe that well, let's see. There was some kind of an error here insofar as the publication of item 7 on the agenda, 7.1 specifically. And it should not have had the word emergency, but it does have the word emergency. And based on what the city attorney said, it sounds to me as if, and I believe our city clerk agreed with that there is the required and necessary posting of a notice that this is going to take place today. And in fact, it is under the section of discussion. So, and I know I've received, again, just countless between the masks and the mayor's proclamation on Friday. I mean, it was terrible to try to, anyway, you all know. There's probably, I don't know, 4,000, 5,000 emails altogether. And there were very few more than that, less than that. No, you had less than 5,000? but there were a lot. There were over 4,000. I had over 4,000. Okay, I did. And then, you know, all the threats that come with that, you know, you're elected representative, we're going to get you out of office and like that. But I don't, you know, I think that there's sufficient, I think that there is sufficient notice here based on what the city clerk and the city attorney have said. And I think it's something we can vote on today. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like Councilor Vasquez, did you have another comment or forget to put your hand down?
Yes, sorry about that, Mayor. A little minute.
Okay. Well, I guess
there can be a motion.
Councilor Vasquez, yes?
Oh, yes. So are we, I think if the rest of the council is in consensus to vote, who's in agreement to postpone or table this until a special meeting on Friday the 5th, then I will go ahead and move to do as such, unless I hear otherwise. I see Councilor Sorg has his hand up, so I'll wait on that.
Councilor Sorg?
I was going to suggest a move to table to Friday myself. So I'll go ahead and make that motion. If it gets a second, then we'll vote.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councilor Sorg, motion to table till Friday, second by Councilor Vasquez. Christine?
This is on a motion to table ordinance 2929 to June 5th, 2020. Councilor Beta-Stuvey?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Gondara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay. Takes care of that. So now we're going to go to board appointments and see Economic Recovery Ad Hoc Board. Mayor Pro Tem Emeritus Sharon Thomas, appointed by myself, Ken Miyagishima. Michael Harris, appointed by Councilor Flores. Blanca Veronica Archuleta, appointed by Councilor Beta-Stuvey. And Christopher Shalijo, appointed by Councilor Bencomo.
Saljo.
I'm sorry?
It's pronounced Saljo.
Saljo, okay. And so looks like we're missing Councilor Sorg, Councilor Vasquez, and Councilor Gondara, Mayor Pro Tem Gondara's appointments, but those will be forthcoming, I hope.
I don't have any business people that live in my district. Okay, you know of any.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I have an appointment. I probably just haven't officially filed it. Do I need to send that officially to David by email, or can I make that now?
Christine, do they have to have the application on file?
You can go ahead and appoint them now. Just make sure that they submit the application to me as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. But my desired appointment is Ramiro Alcala.
Okay.
Mayor, and I spoke to Jane Bloom, who owns Dwell Yoga, and it felt like she was interested and was going to submit, but I checked with Christine and there wasn't a submission of her application. So I'm following up with her now. And if not, I have someone else in mind and I will push that over in the next day or two.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so Christine, you got that, Ramiro? Okay, great. So now would be for the Board of Commissioners for the City of Las Cruces Utilities. So I'm going to need a motion and a second on these. So William Little, reappointment.
Move to approve.
Second, Bencomo.
Motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Councilor Bencomo. Christine?
This is on a motion to reappoint William Little to the Board of Commissioners for Las Cruces Utilities. Councilor Beta-Stuvey?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores,
Yes.
Councilor Gandara,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Okay, another reappointment, Dr. Harry Johnson. Motion second, please.
I'll move to appoint him.
Motion made by Councilor Sorg, and was there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Vasquez. Christine?
this is on the motion to reappoint Harry Johnson to the Board of Commissioners for the Las Cruces Utilities. Councilor Beta Stevie,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo,
Yes.
Councilor Sorg,
Yes.
Councilor Flores,
Yes.
Councilor Gandara,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Okay, a new appointment, Mr. Harry Hardy. Motion second, please.
I'll move to approve.
Second, Bencomo.
Motion made by Councilor Sorg, second by Councilor Bencomo. Christine?
this is on the motion to appoint Harry Hardy to the Board of Commissioners for the Las Cruces Utilities. Councilor Beta Stevie,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo,
Yes.
Councilor Sorg,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Councilor Gandara,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Wow, I have to say, Dr. Garcia, you have a pretty good team. I mean, with the rest of your reappointments and Mr. Hardy, what a pretty impressive their backgrounds. Pretty impressive.
You're right, Mayor.
Yes, yes. Okay, now we're going to go to the Economic Recovery Ad Hoc Board. I need a motion and a second for Doug Cowan, new appointment.
Move to approve. Doug?
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Sorg, second by Councilor Vasquez to appoint Doug Cowan. Christine?
this is on the motion to appoint Doug Cowan to the Economic Recovery Board. Councilor Beta Stevie,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo,
Yes.
Councilor Sorg,
Yes.
Councilor Flores,
I didn't, whose appointment is he?
he's going to be the nonprofit appointment.
Ah, thank you. Yes.
Councilor Gandara,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Okay, Jolene Martinez, new appointment. Motion second.
Second by Yvonne.
I think I heard Councilor Beta Stuvie, motion second by Councilor Flores. Christine?
this is on the motion to appoint Jolene Martinez to the Economic Recovery Board. Councilor Beta Stevie,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo,
Yes.
Councilor Sorg,
Yes.
Councilor Flores,
Yes.
Councilor Gandara,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Okay, and Debbie Moore, new appointment to the Economic Recovery Ad Hoc Board. Motion a second, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilor Flores, second by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. Christine?
this is on the motion to appoint Debbie Moore to the Economic Recovery Board. Councilor Beta Stevie,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo,
Yes.
Councilor Sorg,
Yes.
Councilor Flores,
Yes.
Councilor Gandara,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Okay, now we're going to go to notice of proposed ordinances. There'll be no public discussion. Council may ask staff for clarification on the proposed ordinances. Number 9.1, Council Bill number 20-038, ordinance number 2930.
Bring it forward.
I'll bring it forward. 9.2, Council Bill number 20-039, ordinance number 2931.
Bring it forward.
Forward. Number 9.3, Council Bill 20-040, ordinance number 2932.
Bring it forward.
Forward. 9.4, Council Bill number 20-041, ordinance number 2933.
Bring it forward.
Forward. Okay, now we're going to go to City Council member board reports and comment. I don't really have any particular comments, so I'll just turn to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have any comments either.
Okay, Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have reports, yada, yada, what did I do with them? Well, I have various reports from different boards and whatever. But my notes are over here. So the South Central Regional Transit District met on May 27th, and we had a lot of items on the agenda, and we were stuck with a couple of issues. So one was a contract agreement, and so so there's a lot of issues. I'm going to be talking to certain people about this, but at this point, anyway. So then there was also the animal shelter center of Mesilla Valley, and I was not at the meeting. And Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Gandara was gracious enough to chair that meeting, took over that meeting, but the issues that were raised was the potential transition of the shelter, transition from being a JPA with the county and coming under the auspices of the city alone. The other meeting that we had was with the JPA with LCPS, the Community Schools Board, and we had elections and everything went well. The good thing was that the happy news was that the Lynn Middle School received additional funding from the PED. They were refunded, and the new most recent school, MacArthur Community School, received a state implementation the implementation grant of $150,000. So this was all very, very good news. And that's coming along. It's coming along beautifully. And the new vice chair on that, the new chair is Dr. Wendy Miller Tomlinson, and our new vice chair is our very own Councilor Abeta Stuvey. So let's see. And then the Airport Advisory Board meeting was held on May 21, and Andy Hume gave his report, and there was all this discussion about the composition of the board because someone's term expired. But Andy gave a detailed presentation on all the work that's being done at the airport. And then shortly after, I think a day or two after that, or was it later that evening, we had a meeting on the landscaping, and there were I think a former board member, Senator Souls, attended that meeting. And again, Andy gave a detail of the blueprint of everything that's going on, and it's really, really great work. And so far as getting a lot of projects done, being on time, meeting FAA regulations and all that sort of stuff. And I think he said that, well, anyway, so everything is good. There were issues on insurance. and not issues on insurance, just some clarification, because we had our city person present and there was input. And so then, of course, the economic development PRC, the big outcome there was what we just voted on right now, not voted on, but the ad hoc committee. The history of the PRC was done, and then the rest of the meeting was pretty much on the ad hoc committee. We had a full discussion on that, and the fruition came to a point today by all the announcements of the people selected or appointed, to the board. And also, I want to add, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, you definitely, how should I say, you had the power to do what you did on Friday. But I'm not speaking for any other counselor, but I felt blindsided. I read about it in Saturday's newspaper front page, and I was really taken aback by that. I was taken aback by the substance. I was taken aback by the fact that, yes, you were within your powers. We gave you those emergency powers that you didn't have to in any way consult with us to make the decision. But the fact that you didn't let us know that you had done it, I felt, frankly, it was like a slap in the face. I think that we all have a very good relationship, a very good working relationship. I think we're out, we're definitely all working for the best interest of the city. But I didn't read through the 4,000 plus emails that I received. I did read the ones that were not the same one over and over again, like that was probably 2,500 worth or whatever. But there were a number of emails that there was nothing I could say except I agree with you, and I'm not going to vote for it. And anyway, it was terrible to have read it in the newspaper. As I said, you had the power to do it. And I'm really wondering if, and this is just, something I've pondered since Saturday. I wonder if we should, because we do have, pursuant to the charter, have the ability to declare an emergency ordinance. And so, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, as I said, it was an affront. And it just, I'm wondering if we should go back on that ordinance and revisit it or, rescind it. But those are my comments with all due respect. And I mean no disrespect or no harm or anything like that. But I think it's a terrible thing for all of us, because all of us have been affected all weekend, dealing with our constituents and non-constituents, residents of the city. I even received, I don't know about the rest of you, but I received an email from Lubbock, Texas, and one from Rincon, and one from the county. The address was a county road mailbox number. So I just had to speak my mind, Mr. Mayor, just put it out there openly. I do have concerns, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels. But anyway, thank you. Thank you very much.
No, Councilor Flores, you're absolutely right. Let me tell you something. I pondered it back and forth, and let me tell you why I couldn't, obviously, send it to you for a couple of reasons. Well, why? You had already issued at 3:38 after you issued it. I'm just saying, I'm not asking for permission. I was saying you should have at least. I sent it to you. You might respond, and all the others. And keep in mind, it's only good for 72 hours. And it would almost be like gathering input, almost like a poll, because this is going to be discussed here in about 15, 20 minutes. So, you see what I'm getting at? It's issues that's now going to be discussed. That's why I refrain from doing that. I hear what you're saying, but
May I interject something? Is there not an opportunity for David Maestas to send us a copy of the proclamation so we have it rather than read it in the newspaper the next day?
I got a copy. I received a copy from a friend. You know, I'm on Christina Little's email list, and I got it. That's how I read it when she sent out so William Little and Christina, a married couple, you know, they dedicate their lives to community service. And yeah, it was like, I guess, you know, the only thing I could think of is like akin to a kid coming home and saying, "Hey, Ma, I want you to meet my wife. I got married over, you know, we took off to Vegas and here's my wife." I mean, you know, something like that.
Yeah, no, I got you. And I hear what you're saying. I mean, these are things that I couldn't risk. But yeah, I think answering Mayor Pro Tem's question, sure, that could have taken place. And I probably could have, asked that it be sent out to council. But then you're I don't know. I mean, that's.
Why did Christina Little get it before we even knew that it was out there? How did she get it?
Press release was sent out shortly after I signed it. Friday
Yeah,
after.
so if it was sent out to the press, why couldn't it have been sent to us, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
All due respect.
Yeah, I hear you, Councilor. I'm sorry, but I don't control where your email goes. I mean, I don't send you things directly.
No, but
I hear you. I know. I got you.
I'm not going to beat the dead horse. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Sword.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, on council and we had a state board of the Workforce Solution Development, and they gave a presentation last week of the work they're doing. I have a funny feeling I already have reported on this. Maybe it's the new subcommittee that I didn't report on. That was it. This is a subcommittee called Business Engagement. And a lot of discussion was in, I won't go into any detail, some of which I don't understand anyway, but listening and putting our 2 cents worth in. The one penny I did put into it was I offered to volunteer our community development department and this is for Mr. Maestas mainly, to send out a message from Workforce Solutions to the businesses in town of what Workforce Solutions can do for them. It would be a relatively short message. It wouldn't be something really big, but it's something about how we want to get people back to work and how we can facilitate that. And then also the kind of workers that they're looking for, they would relate back to Workforce Solutions. That's about it, Mr. Mayor. I don't have, one more thing, a comment about George Floyd. How sad can that be? I don't think there's anything any worse than what has happened to him and what has happened since. I talked to some people were demonstrating out this morning on Main Street, and they said that they were going to do a vigil tonight at, I believe, Johnson Park. So I just wanted to announce that. That'd be 5, 6, 7 o'clock in that range of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only comments today are a prepared statement, actually. As you all know, I'm a community organizer, and organizing around social justice issues is sort of just who I am and my DNA. While I appreciate the intent of the moment of silence earlier for Mr. George Floyd, I get the intent. However, I think it's time to speak up and say unequivocally that Black Lives Matter. The continued silence is what has led to the conditions we are currently seeing across the country today. Because we love this country and this community, we have to name the sickness that blankets this nation, which is white supremacy. It has been specifically the silence of many who sit in positions like mine, local elected officials across this country, who have been too afraid to speak up and to call this evil out. Yes, it is uncomfortable. It should be uncomfortable. But nothing is as uncomfortable as the grief and the pain that Black mothers and fathers have felt for years. The issue of police brutality lives within our community too. Las Cruces is not immune to this sickness. We may not be seeing protests like we are in other cities, but this pain lives here too. We don't have to look to Minnesota or Kentucky to try to understand why the injustices committed against Mr. Floyd or Breonna Taylor or the hundreds, thousands of other souls have led to this moment right now. These stories exist here too. Our silence will only lead to more impunity, lack of accountability, mistrust, unrest, but worst of all, lost lives. So I will do what I do best, which is organize and ensure that we have this conversation in Las Cruces publicly with those who have been directly impacted front and center. We can no longer accept silence or passivity. We are responsible to serve our community in this moment. We have a responsibility to listen to these cries, to seek them out even here in Las Cruces. Then we must put meaningful action forward that actually upholds justice and people's humanity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Bencomo, for that beautiful statement and for all your work in our community for so many years. I'm right there with you. I will say it loudly that Black Lives Matter and that we have an opportunity, as tragic as it is with the murder of George Floyd, to not just have conversations about what the problems are, but really start rewriting systems that enforce and embrace the type of actions that have led to countless other murders in the past, and the conditions that are created within communities of color, Black communities especially, in which the cards are stacked against folks. And I think part of what I've been trying to do during my time here on the City Council is to reinvest in our underserved communities as a way to add quality of life, dignity, some sense of respect for folks who work hard every day to put food on the table, who may not have the types of experiences or opportunities that other people of privilege have had, but nonetheless are incredibly important to the fabric of our society. We've seen how important folks that we often forget because they're on the lowest rung of the economic ladder are during this time of COVID. And it's no surprise that everybody from manual laborers to construction workers to field workers are the people that we forget about, but they're also the people that face this type of discrimination and this type of violence at the hands of law enforcement because they're somehow thought as less than. And I think we can continue to have that lens as a council. I'm so proud to be serving with you guys because I know that folks here are making the best decisions for our community with an emphasis on equity and reinvestment back into our people. And I think that's part of the role that we can take, in addition to making sure, obviously, that as elected officials in our community, we set the right example and we work with our police department to make sure that that's not happening in our community. And when we find that it is, that we act swiftly, quickly, and that justice is brought, just the same way we would do it with anybody else. And so I am incredibly saddened to see the state of our nation as divided as it is today, but it's a really important, pivotal time, I think, in my time especially, having been in this position just recently, to not just talk about it and not forget about this in a couple of weeks, but to continue working to invest in our community the best way we can through policy and budget decisions that actually address the systemic inequities that impact communities of color. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Councilor Beta Stuvey.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilors Bencomo and Vasquez, for your comments, because Black lives do matter. I have a question for our Chief Gallagher. If in the last few days we have been able to talk with our police officers about these events and what types of messaging that you have given them during the last few days.
Council, I have not personally. That would be a job that falls to the sergeants, lieutenants, deputy chiefs. As you can imagine, we are kind of busy with what's going on in the world. In fact, we're preparing for a protest tonight. So I don't have the opportunity to speak with each and every one of them individually, but when I do, I will let you know.
Okay, thanks, Chief. David, you have any comments? David Maestas, I'm sorry. I say David, there's like 5.
Oh, no, it's
David
okay,
Maestas.
Mayor. I was coming up, I just couldn't get the mic and video on quickly enough. David Maestas, Interim City Manager. Thank you, Mayor and Councils, for the time to speak to you. I just wanted to give a thank you to our PIO staff and UDEL, as you mentioned before he left. They were able to get additional items on our COVID tracking button, one of which was the funding appropriations that have been approved by council. That is up there for people to see what was approved and what the progress on those are. They also put up another COVID dashboard that's easier to navigate through and gives you additional information, not just from the city of Las Cruces, but other agencies who are tracking the COVID progress itself. They were able to do this with help from our GIS staff. So another great collaboration across departmental lines and different staff working on specific items. So that item is in there as well if you go to our COVID, or if the community wants to go to that COVID button so that they can see the additional dashboard. Also, I will be sending you a letter from the library. It's a breakdown of areas that they have been working on to help with the fines. You know, there was recent discussion in one of the PRCs, one of our committees, and there was also the item on there on write-offs. They have worked diligently to help decrease the number that they have with some programs. So you'll get a summary of that. I won't go into them now, but be on the lookout for that email. And then lastly, our treasurer gave me the information for the loan details for the streets SSGRT, and the flood loans as well. The streets, the par amount that was awarded was $5,080,000, which is less than the $5.2 million that was approved. The final maturity is in June 1st, 2033. Which is before the last approved date of June 1st, 2034. The net effect interest rate is 1.6%, which is very low, quite a bit lower than the 12% required. The NMFA processing fee was $0, which is also less than the 1% maximum approved. As a side note, the NMFA has a program where the processing fee is eliminated up to a certain amount for qualified disadvantaged loans. And then lastly, all other terms with parameters that were within the parameters approved by council. And then for the flood, the par amount was $3,580,000, which is less than the maximum $5,700,000 approved. The final maturity is June 1st, 2032, which is before the latest approved date of June 1st, 2033. Net effective interest rate is 1.59%, which is less than the 12% required. Again, a rather low interest rate. The NMFA processing fee on this one was also $0, less than the 1% maximum. And all other terms were within parameters approved by council. So thank you for that, Mayor.
Thank you, David. Okay, so after we adjourn this meeting, we'll probably need what about?
Mayor,
yes,
sorry.
Councilor.
Thank you. Sorry, I got kicked out, so I got on back as soon as possible. And I do apologize for coming back in, but we were talking with Chief Gallagher. He had just mentioned that he had not spoken directly to the other officers, and that's where I left off. So I'd be glad. I'd like to hear that again from him, and then I have some follow-ups.
Chief Gallagher?
I'm back. Yes. What
Yeah.
part did you not hear, Councilor Stuvey?
Thank you. Sorry, you ended, and it concerns me a bit because during this time, and you said that you were getting ready, since we are expecting protests, I think it's very important that us as leadership, we talk about the reasons why this is happening, what it is happening, and we are given, as leaders, we need to give out those messages. We have seen some powerful visuals of de-escalation when our officers empathize and they understand, because some of them might even be experiencing the same systems of oppression and racism. And I'm concerned you haven't given a personal message yet to them or talked about it. I know that we have very capable lieutenants, but I think at this point in time, it's something that, we need to see, and I'm sure they would feel very comfortable hearing from you as well.
Appreciate your input.
Is that something that you plan on doing or no?
I had been planned on it, yes. And I said, you didn't hear me earlier. When I do it, I will let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councilor. Okay, so anyways, we're probably going to stay on, well, let me just verify. So Christine, are we going to stay on this, or Adrian, on this Zoom for about 5 minutes until our special council meeting? We're not going to leave and then come sign on again, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and adjourn. You guys can come back in 5 minutes. That would be great. So I'll need a motion and a second to adjourn, please.
So moved. Bencomo.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Bencomo, second by Councilor Flores.
Flores, yes, thank you.
Okay, motion by Councilor Bencomo, second by Councilor Flores, that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. It's 4:01 p.m. See you guys around 4:06 p.m.